You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packer fans. We love talking about the Pack, so that's what we're going to stick to. We're not talking about national sports media headlines and all that nonsense. We're just sticking with real football. We're diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games in the season, sorting through all the drama and the rumors of the offseason. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button for us. Give us a follow on all the socials. Subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. All those things help us out quite a bit and don't cost you anything, so we greatly appreciate it. And before we get started, a few words about our sponsor, Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. For direct links to specific Packers game tickets, go to packerstalk.com/tickets or browse their website at theticketking.com. Tim, good evening, sir. How you doing?
Good evening. Happy NFL Draft Month. We're about 3.5 weeks away now, so
yeah, time's flying,
getting closer. Man. Yeah. I mean, excited for it. Kind of wishing we could get there already. There's been a lot of draft talk on Packers Twitter since it's been pretty quiet for the Packers the last few weeks as far as news goes. So it's like, can we get here already? Because I think the next few weeks are going to be real slow, and there's going to be, a lot of debate going on about every player out there. So.
Well, we got ourselves a little debate we're going to have tonight.
We do.
I'm sure it'll be a friendly debate, and we'll probably both end up being right. But yeah, we'll cover a little bit of that. We're going to finish off our receivers and cornerbacks analysis, talk about some Day-3 guys, some guys that people are maybe sleeping on a little bit. And we had a special guest joining us today, a special friend of mine that I got to play with at UW Oshkosh. We were teammates on the football team there. One of my favorite football minds as far as folks that I've been around. Coached now at Fond du Lac for the last 12 years. Can't believe how long it's been. Justin Budak, welcome, sir. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. I'm glad to have you on, man. This is exciting.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Hell yeah. So we're going to talk about some stuff. If some of you were paying close enough attention, I did say Fond du Lac High School, so there is a particular draft prospect that we might be interested in getting some information from him on. But just talking about football, Budak, you're one of the greatest football minds that I've always enjoyed being around, man. So excited to pick your brain tonight. But there's really just not a lot of Packers updates to get into. Is there anything? Tim, I got on here that they signed a kicker.
They signed a kicker. Or can we do the whole podcast on the kicker?
Is that an April Fool's joke? They really who did they sign?
Yeah, last week. You didn't see?
I totally missed that.
It's April Fool's, but I'm not making. They did sign a kicker.
Okay, well, they signed
Greg Joseph, who was from the Vikings and a few other teams before that.
Nice. Okay.
I mean,
cool.
he's a veteran. His numbers aren't that great, but it's at least competition. So who knows?
Supposed to be. We'll see.
Yeah, supposed to be. I mean, I think Carlson's. They want him to be the kicker. I mean, they spent a draft pick on him last year. They want him to be the guy. They stuck with him all last year. But it's at least a sign they're going to bring in a veteran. And maybe it's not Joseph. Maybe it's not Carlson. It could be a guy on another team. This could come down to the end of training camp. So who knows? But he's a veteran. He's kicked in the NFL. I did see he's got a couple 60-yard field goals, or at least one in his career. So he must have pretty decent leg.
Okay, that's not nothing.
The accuracy's nothing special, but neither was Carlson's last year. So
right.
Who knows? But at least maybe it'll stop him from drafting another kicker.
Yeah. There's a lot of talent in this draft. I don't know if we need to draft a kicker, though.
No, I don't know if they needed to do that last year either. But, I mean, it's only 1 year. Maybe he figures it out, and, hopefully he's their next Mason Crosby. But yeah, I guess it's at least competition.
I'll stay optimistic. Say he's the next Crosby. Give us another 10, 15
so.
years.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hopefully.
But I don't know. So, Budak, what are you thinking about these Packers, man? I haven't even really just gotten to ask like your general opinion about where this team's headed.
I mean, it's got to be exciting, doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
It's I don't get to watch a ton of Packers, at least early on in the season. We do a lot of our game planning on Sundays, but towards the end of the year, late November, I guess I was part of the best part of the season. And I got a son who's 12, who's really starting to understand the game and enjoy the game. And, those late night games in the playoffs, those were some of the best times that I had all year, just sitting around watching like the Packers running pin and pull against the Niners till the cows came home. Like, he'd call it out before they run the play. And it was really good stuff. I mean, and I just keep hearing people say, "Oh, the future's bright. The future's bright." Well, the future was now. It was
yeah, no kidding.
close. I mean, but it's super exciting. It's we're pretty lucky. You hear about your parents growing up as Packer fans, and it was never very good times. But now there's nothing but to be excited about this team, man.
No doubt, man. I mean, Jordan Love coming out. Obviously, a year ago, it was all question marks, right? Like, I guess we were still playing the game about leverage with Rodgers, but we all pretty well knew that all signs pointed to Jordan Love, and I think the consensus was we don't know what he will be. Mm-hmm. I think there were some signs coming out of the 22 season, some players like Devondre Campbell saying, "Hey, this guy's legit," and it's just exciting to see it unfold, man. Like watching him kind of, come into his own a little bit throughout the season, stumble a little bit, but man, like the things that he's doing, it's like, holy crap, this is year one.
He's something special, man. I mean, and I knew it just coming from my perspective when the other guys were coming to bat for him, especially in training camp, and there were a lot of national media guys saying he ain't going to be worth a lick or whatever it might be. I just had a feeling that, those guys are with him every single day. He's got a young coach. He's not going to challenge the coach like Aaron Rodgers did. He's going to go along with what they do. And I mean, it worked out pretty darn well for him, man. Hopefully we got a third franchise here.
I mean, that's where the arrow's pointing. It's hard not to get excited like that because, I mean, obviously anything can happen, but, it's hard to ask for a better first season as a starter than that.
No.
So Budak is an offensive guy now. One surprise I'd like to get your take on. We talked about it a little bit, but the Josh Jacobs signing, man, did that catch you off guard?
Yeah, no, I guess. I mean, I just had a feeling that I think Green Bay kind of, at least the front office, plays by their own rules, right? I mean, the fans wanted Aaron Jones back, and I think people forget that Aaron Jones he was hurt at the end of the 49ers game. And I think he still played through it, but, he was hurt a lot and he's getting old. And, and Aaron Jones was awesome dude. I mean, he did so much for that team. But as soon as he left, I guess I didn't think that they would, as soon as I knew he was going to get released, wouldn't have never guessed that they would spend that much money on running back. But, I've learned to trust them, man. I've learned to trust them because they know a lot more than I do, man. I was trying to get this stuff ready tonight, and oh my gosh, man! I was just looking at cornerback, safeties, and wideouts. It took me like 3 hours to do that. I can't believe these guys do it nonstop, man. We give them a lot of crap, but man, they put their time in, so they must see something that maybe we don't. But
it just seemed like the Aaron Jones move was like a move where they kind of ignored what he did down the stretch last year. And I don't mean that even in a bad way. It was just like they're looking at next year when he's 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's coming off an injured season where he missed a ton of games. It seems like every year he kind of gets nicked up a little bit and misses a game or two here and there. And, they're looking at it as an aging running back with an injury history. And as good as he was those last 5 games of the season, I think as a front office, they're just looking at what the future is going to be. They're looking at 2024, not what 2023 was for those last 5 weeks. And I guess if you're looking at it that way, it makes sense. As a fan, it sucks and it hurts. But, I mean, True. They're right more often than not. So
True. It's true.
Just see him go to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Because he's going to go off one of those games. He's going to.
Yeah.
You know it'll happen.
Yep.
That's the part. Like, oh man, I actually thought he might go to Dallas, follow the familiarity with McCarthy, but yeah, him going to Minnesota, that's going to sting a little bit. You might split that series because of that, but no, and love Aaron Jones, man. No hate for that guy even going to Minnesota, and I think there's only a few players that can fall into that, but it sucks the way that it ended. That's one of those. He's one of those guys you wish you could have seen him finish as a Packer, kind of like Donald Driver. But yeah, so that one caught me totally off guard, and I just thought like spending on a free agent running back at the top of the market was like one of the least characteristic things for the Packers to do, and there we are. But it's exciting though. I mean, Josh Jacobs is an excellent running back.
Yeah, and LaFleur wants to run the ball. I mean, that's he wants to run the football.
That seems clear.
He wants to be a run first, play action type of guy, and to me, it's a pretty big fit, pretty good fit if that's what you want to do. So we'll see. I hope he's what he was 2 years ago. That's good last year.
He's young, so it's his best football definitely could be in front of him, and I think that's a good point you made there, Tim. Is like how you almost have to overlook what Jones did down the stretch there because how much of that is left, you don't know. There could be some left, but I think if you're betting on one or the other between the two, bet on Jacobs. So. Yeah, that was a big surprise. McKinney was fun. That was a fun signing, but everybody's pulling for him. I don't think that was as much of a surprise, but nonetheless, I'm pumped to see him play back there with the guys they already got, Jair Alexander and the rest of those guys. But yeah, so I'm excited, man. It's hard not to be just totally excited, even with holes that they have. Like I look at this roster right now before going in the draft. I'm like, sure, let's go, man. This looks like a playoff roster.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, very exciting. But let's talk a little bit of day 3 draft prospects. Tim, you want to lead us off on some sleeper corners here?
Yeah, I mean the one guy that kind of popped out to me, and maybe it's too obvious, but it's Elijah Jones from Boston College because he played for Hafley last year, and so he knows what Hafley wants to play. So he's got the versatility, playing his system, playing his different coverages, playing press, and then he had a really good offseason so far. He tested great. He's got a 9+ RAS number, relative athletic score, which obviously the Packers love that familiarity there. So yeah, I mean he's one that jumped out at me. Last week we talked about Kyrie Jackson from Oregon, who he might sneak into the 3rd round, but huge. He's 6'3", a little skinny, only about like 195 pounds, but again tested very well. Maybe more of a zone corner right now than a physical, man-to-man press corner, but he's got the size at least to do that. And then another corner that we talked about, and he's coming to Green Bay for a visit, and one of the top 30 visits is Jarrian Jones from Florida State, who last season bumped inside to play nickel after having been a perimeter corner. They moved him inside, play nickel, and he was a really good nickel back for him. He's got decent size, and it might be, maybe the Packers view him having versatility to go inside or outside, or maybe they're strictly looking at him at nickel, which would be a change for them since they really haven't prioritized drafting nickel corners, developing nickel corners. It's been, picking up the retreads like Shandon Sullivan, like Keyshawn Nixon, like trying Russell Douglas in the nickel. They really haven't prioritized that position. And another guy who probably falls into the nickel spot is Andrew Phillips from Kentucky, who may just barely make their size measurements if they want to squeeze him in. But yeah, he would be more of a feistier nickel cornerback with some pretty good athletic ability as well. But those are some of those guys that are probably 3rd day, maybe a couple of them sneak into the bottom of round 3 that I noticed and kind of popped out to me.
The kid from Kentucky had a pretty good day at the Senior Bowl, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he was pretty good down there, which is, they like to draft Senior Bowl cornerbacks too, or Senior Bowl players. So they saw him there and, played well in the SEC for him. And again, has that versatility to play inside and outside.
Nice, yeah. Former teammate of Valentine too.
Valentine. So yeah, they were probably saw him last year when they were scouting Valentine too.
Yeah. Now, Justin, one thing that came to mind was he was talking about the nickelbacks. Is that something that extends into the high school game? Are you guys putting 3 corners out there a lot?
Yes and no. We'll see it a little bit. We ended last season with a loss to Marquette, who, oh man, my lights just went off. Who ended up winning the state championship here in Wisconsin, and they would go nickel, mainly on 3rd and longs. If we were down in the game, we got down pretty early, so they would put their 5 DBs in. But typically, we're more of a run first, type of state up here, so we don't see a ton of nickel. But some of those teams down south, southeast, Sussex, Marquette, the Franklins of the world, you'll see a little bit different personnel depending on what your personnel is. But I'm just going to turn this light on for 1 second here.
Yeah, go ahead, man. No, it's just interesting to think about, though, because even Goot admitted as much last week in his interview that the nickel position is becoming more and more important. Obviously, college teams have been lighting up defenses with spread offenses now for a couple decades, it seems like. So the natural adjustment seems like you would have more nickel type guys coming, even from the high school ranks. But is there a lot of demand, from the college game, for that position?
I think there'd be more and more demand for it. And I was reading an article on how Green Bay needs to prioritize their nickel, just like Tim was saying earlier. I think we treat it as kind of a secondary thought, but I mean, you're playing now, 50-60% of the snaps, so you got to have a guy out there who you can trust, that is versatile, who can play on the edge and also can play in the slot, especially with the new defense that we're going to be running. There's going to be a whole lot of press man and 2 deep, and you got to be able to cover guys all over the field. So you got to have 5 good DBs now if you want to be on D.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. That's where I wonder how the development's coming through, because it took a little bit for the spread concept to go from the lower ranks of high school and college to get into the league. So it's funny how those trends happen, and now I think what's interesting is you're seeing this constant feed of talent for receivers. I mean, this receiver class. And you're smiling there, man. I've been talking about it this whole time, but this receiver class is just ridiculously loaded. It's insane. Yeah. And it seems like we've said that now, for a few different receivers classes in recent memory. But if you told me that, there was another like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson coming through this class, it's like, gosh, really? But there definitely is, so we talked about the top, the Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, talked about some of those guys, but even in day 3, you're talking about some real interesting talent that's going to be available. One name that I think will be available, and again, some of these guys, obviously we don't have a crystal ball. Some of them could go earlier than we think. Stuff happens all the time, but just as far as how guys have been talked about and the attention that we have seen and sort of the rankings of some of these guys that know what they're doing. But Brendan Rice is one that I think is interesting. Probably makes it to day 3. Obviously has the name value, but he's a good athlete, man, and looks like a hustle player.
Is he a fumbler like his dad was?
Oh man, shots fired, Tim. Goodness gracious.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that one.
Yeah.
Honestly, we need to look that up. I don't know what his stat sheet is, but just kind of watching a little bit of video of him, man. He's a big dude, 6'3", 210. We all know who his dad is. I think that's interesting enough on its own, but with all the other talent that's on the board, I do think that a guy like that probably makes it to day 3, gets into round 4 or 5. And it's still an interesting prospect, I mean, he's not a bum. But yeah, so there's guys like that. Let me get my other big board up here. I'm pulling all sorts of sheets around. Oh no, did I lose it? Hang on. Jacob Cowing out of Arizona is another one. He's a little small for the Packers, but he's an interesting prospect, and he's graded well earlier. So that Goot has done that where he'll take a guy who performed well a year or two ago and not as well in this latest season. And so there's several guys that, and I don't want to mention all these guys because a lot of them probably don't qualify as far as like the Packers criteria, like a Malik Washington. I just don't think the Packers are going to pick up a receiver who's 5'8" at this point. But the kid looks excellent route runner, fast, great athlete. He might make it to day 3. He might not make it out of day 2. But some of these guys are really, really fascinating. One, and I'm wondering, Justin, if you've heard of this kid, but one is the kid out of Mount Union. Do you know who I'm talking about?
He's not on my list, but shoot. Who is he?
Where does his name go? My
Union wideout, huh?
Yeah, he's broken a lot of records of Pierre Garçon and Cecil Shorts and all that.
Wayne Ruby, it's like Wayne Ruby.
Yeah, Wayne Ruby. This dude scored what was it, 30 touchdowns? Yeah, 30 touchdowns in 2022.
Oh my god.
30 touchdowns, man. At any level, 30 touchdowns is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a bit. That's for sure.
A lot of touchdowns. And he had, then he had 23. Or wait, no, that was Cecil Shorts. I don't know how many he had this. This last season he only had 15. Only had 15.
That's a tough one. It's decent for him.
Cut it in half, man. That's a tough break. But yeah, 6'1", 190. Looks like a great athlete, and he's breaking records of other guys that were pretty good NFL receivers. So that's one to check out and be aware of. I've brought him up a few times. Hayden Hatton out of Idaho, is another one, 6'2", 205, but just a production machine, man. 92 catches last season. Gonna fly under the radar because he played at Idaho, but he just looks like a reliable dude that's gonna give him an assignment. He's gonna know it. So yeah, there's a lot of both of the receivers out of Washington, Polk, they both look like they could be good receivers. Probably will make it to that late day 2, early day 3 range. So there's a lot of guys to be aware of, and some guys that we hadn't really talked about, but are kind of in between that, maybe day 2, day 3. Guys like Keon Coleman out of FSU, probably a second round, maybe third round kind of guy. Very interesting one. The other kid, Johnny Wilson out of FSU. I think somebody might convert him to a tight end.
He's really big, right? Isn't he?
Yeah.
Like 240 or something?
Yeah, he's like 6'7". Was he 6'7", 240, something like that? So he's a big dude. You put a couple pounds on him, build out his frame a little bit more, you got yourself an offensive tackle who's running routes. So yeah, there's a ton of names to be aware of. Another small school guy is Jalen Coker. Steve Smith did a good video on him, but excellent route runner. He's going to fall because of the competition he was up against at Holy Cross. But, there's a lot of difference makers that you're going to see come off the board in day 3 of this draft. And we can't be too surprised by that. The Packers have done well with that the last couple of years, getting Romeo Doubs in the 4th round and getting Dontavian Wicks in the 5th round. So, it's kind of easy, I think, after the excitement of day 1 and day 2 to sort of tune out day 3 of the draft. But there's going to be some really good players available on day 3 there. But this is probably a good time to ask you, Budak, about another prospect. He's not a receiver, but somebody that you know a little bit about, playing running back and entering the draft here, Mr. Brillan Allen.
Yeah.
So who is he going to be in the NFL, in your opinion?
And we chatted a little bit earlier, but I just compare him, at least to start. I see him kind of filling like an A.J. Dillon type of role. There's no doubt about his size and his physicality. He's got speed. He's not by any stretch of the imagination slow. I watched him firsthand. I mean, it's a little different at the high school level, but then it transferred over at Wisconsin. I mean, the guy just, I've been around for a while and I've seen a lot of really good athletes, but rarely do you see an athlete that is unbelievably talented, but also unbelievably hardworking the way he was. I don't know where he's gonna end up in the draft. I know he had a hamstring issue or ankle issue or some sort of issue late in last season, but he seems to be getting healthy with that. I would assume he'd be drafted middle of the road. And to me, it's all going to be about the fit. If a team picks him because he fits well, I think he's going to have a really good run. Running back's a tough position in the NFL. We saw it firsthand with the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Jones. It's a bruising position, and but if you can find your niche, kind of like AJ Dillon has in Green Bay, you can make a pretty darn good career out of it. So I'm excited to see where he goes. I know he like I said, he's been banged up a little bit, and he's got a lot of miles on him, but he's super young. He's 21 years old, I think. So that's crazy to think he's going to NFL at 21 years old. But I'm excited. I would like to see him go to kind of a bruising type of team. I'd like maybe like the Steelers. Some team that's going to be a run first type of team. I don't know, for some reason I like the Steelers, like my second favorite team, but I'd like to see him go somewhere where he's going to be used and not going to be thrown to the wayside. So hopefully he has a good place to land. And, I think if he gets a shot, he'll surprise some people and be pretty darn good at the next level.
Right on, man. I mean, yeah, as a Badger fan, it was hard not to be excited about him. He's just an absolute freak as far as physics are concerned. He's built like Derrick Henry, but like you're saying, he is fast. Like, he's not slow. I can't remember. I remember there was a miles per hour thing that was done on him in one of the Badger games, and I think he got up to like 21 or 22, something like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are putting some stock into him not running his 40, but the reality is he's not 100%, so it wouldn't help him to do that.
Right.
Guys going to make business decisions all the time. So I think teams are looking past that, and like I said, I think he'll be middle of the road, and we'll see where the fit is, and if the fit's right, I think he have a heck of a career, man. You saw what he did at Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was fun to watch, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And it kind of is a shame how the transition happened right in the middle of his career there at Wisconsin.
Wasn't he like...
What's that, Tim? Uh-oh. Tim, you there?
I was going to say, wasn't he like 17 when he got there as a freshman? And like, he didn't...
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. No, he was insanely young, man. He was ridiculously young.
Yeah.
And he
took off from, as soon as he got his chance, he just exploded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and he was wasn't he originally recruited as a DB to go into Wisconsin?
I guess I don't know for sure what I think he was recruited on the defense side of the ball, whether that's overhang or strong safety, but he kind of outgrew the safety position. I still think he could be a dominant defensive end or overhang, kind of like TJ Watt, but it ended up working out pretty well for him at the running back position.
No doubt. When you're squatting like 700 pounds in high school,
it's hard to describe, man, how like physically gifted he is.
Yeah.
Just a matter of staying healthy and getting the right fit.
Do you think that there's a fit with the Packers?
I personally don't, as much as I thought. With the signing of AJ Dillon, and then and I believe we still have Emmanuel Wilson, who I thought was pretty darn good. The one game he had a chance, I think he had something with his chest or some injury with his chest that kept him sidelined. But I thought he was a pretty darn good back. So I think they're pretty deep at that running back position. I'd like to see him go to a place where he has a chance to be that number 2.
Yeah,
and then maybe. You never know how it goes. Guys gets injured. He goes in. He has 130 yards in a game, and then the rest of his career is different. You never know.
Yeah. No, you don't. But even Derrick Henry, like you said, he's built kind of like that. It took him a couple years before he became that dude. So, either way, man, it's exciting to see him, developing, going into the league. You getting a chance to coach him as a young man in high school, I think, is a pretty neat experience. But I know that he got some of that grit from Budak.
And he didn't get anything from me. He was pretty polished by the time he got here. We're gonna throw you an arrow out, go make 6 guys miss, and then run over 3 guys and score. That was the COVID year, so our season got cut short that year. So
yeah,
that was a tough one to swallow. We had him and we had another quarterback who was pretty darn good. He was at Minnesota Duluth right now. So
nice.
But what could have been, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even with the Packers season, you could say that, right? I mean, it was right there. But no, that's exciting stuff, man. And anytime we can, learn a little bit more about some of these guys, it's exciting, to do that. And you got a chance to coach Brillan Allen, so appreciate you weighing in on where he's at right now. But I'm just overly optimistic as a fan. Like, I can't wait to see what he does in the NFL. And I agree with you. I think, like the Steelers would be a fun place to see him end up. If Baltimore wasn't already just stacked, I think that would be a fun one to see
100%.
too.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
But yeah, so the other thing we were going to do here this evening is have a little bit of a debate about the top safety prospect for the Packers in this draft. So, Tim, I see that your answer is not the same as mine. I was a little bit worried. I was worried we were going to agree. We've done that a little bit. But do you want to lead us off, man? Who do you think is and this is for the Packers, right? So this isn't just necessarily just safety number one, right? This is who you think is the best prospect for them.
For the Packers, I think it's Cole Bishop from Utah.
Okay.
For me personally, I really like Tyler Nubin from Minnesota. Thought he would be a fit for the Packers until he tested. And that relative athletic score under 3, yeah, that's rough. Now, couple things. He had a knee injury, so that probably played a factor. But if you have a knee injury, why are you testing? Just don't test because you see the results. Another thing that I found interesting last week, didn't know this, but the Packers personnel guy, Milt Hendrickson, who's one of Goody's, close advisors in the personnel department, his brother actually works for University of Minnesota, off-field role as like a director of player personnel or something like that. Maybe they got some inside information where the testing numbers aren't going to matter as much to them because, they can find out what the kid's real numbers would be if he wasn't hurt, or they just like him as a prospect anyway, and they're willing to ignore the numbers based on whatever inside information they can gather. I don't know. But going by what they've done under Goody and going, as far back as Ted Thompson, they just aren't going to take somebody with that poor of testing numbers, at least within the first 100 picks. And that's when he's going to go. So as much as I like Nubin, I think he's probably not going to be a Packer. Bishop, he kind of had the opposite. He had incredible testing numbers. One of the best testers since they started the combine for safeties. His film, a little bit, up and down at times, but you can see the athletic ability. They had him in the box. They had him deep, moving him around. He can fly around a little bit, seems like, and I think he needs to settle down and kind of have a role. But he does it 100 miles an hour, and you see the athletic ability and the versatility to line up in different spots. And I think fitting next to a Xavier McKinney, where McKinney's going to cover a lot of ground, and they can do, he can play. We've talked about McKinney. He can play in the post. He can cover if you need him to kick over to the slot. You don't want him doing it all the time, but he could do that. So like, having Bishop next to him maybe could put Bishop in a specialized role, which would help his development. But I like Bishop, and another guy, and this might be one that you like as well, I think, but is Jaden Hicks from Washington State, who is a bigger safety, and again another guy that tested really well. So I thought maybe he was just going to be a box safety, and didn't know if he could play the deep, play too high, or even play the post, and maybe he can as well, down to down, but he has the athletic ability to show that it's a possibility for him. So, bigger safety, like I said, I think he's about 210 or 215. So a little bit of a different size from McKinney, but it would fit nicely since McKinney's not as, he's not small, but he's not as big. He's not 215, and Hicks can be that more in the box, flying up, stuff in the run, physical safety next to or opposite Xavier McKinney. So those are a couple guys I like for the Packers. And like I said, I do like Nubin. It's just, I don't see him being a Packer fit just because of the way he's tested.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's interesting because there's another one I think that Packers Twitter really loved, and then his testing came in, and then everybody kind of turned off on him. And it's Cam Kitchens, man. That guy, he's my number one for the Packers. And I can't sit here and say, oh, man, I've watched every one of his games on film. I've watched a few. I went back and I tried to look at the worst game as far as PFF grade goes from 2022 and the best from 2022, worst from 23 and the best from 23. The thing that stood out to me about Cam Kitchens across those things was his consistency. He looked like the same player in his worst game as he did in his best game. The biggest difference was just the stats, which sometimes stats happen at the safety position and sometimes they don't. Right. If you're doing your job, you're just pushing the play the other way. But his athleticism is what a lot of people bailed on. And when I watched him, I didn't see a single play, not a single play, where he lost because of athleticism. There were a few where he was over aggressive, so he took a poor pursuit angle. But I never once saw I was like, oh man, he got burned, or oh man, he just got ran over, or anything like that. Like he handles himself really well. So if he is athletically limited or outmatched or whatever, what I'm seeing is an instinctive player that puts himself in the right position to overcome that, which actually reminds me a lot of like a Micah Hyde kind of guy. Like Micah Hyde was not a great athlete as far as testing goes coming out. I think he had like a 33-inch vertical, ran like a 4.5, 4.6, something like that. But instinctively always in the right place, or at least most of the time in the right place. And so that's what, as far as like Cam Kitchens goes, he seems like a great fit for me. One thing that I really enjoyed watching about him is you can see before every play, he's out there communicating. There's a lot of chatter and a lot of direction happening, and not a lot of confusion. Every now and then people have confusion, but there's just not a lot of chaos when you watch that Miami defense and him running it, at least what it looks like in the secondary. So I really, really like Cam Kitchens. I would go as far to say as he's probably got some of the best instincts of any of the safeties in this draft, which obviously can't really measure that. Budak, you got a favorite safety in this draft so far?
I mean, it all depends. I mean, to me, it all depends on where do you see Xavier McKinney fitting in.
Good question.
I like Tim's pick of Cole Bishop. The one thing I noticed about him as I watched some tape on him, just not a lot, but a little bit, is he can fill. He's a line of scrimmage type of guy first, but then there's certain times where they'll ask him to play cover 2 or cover 1 over the top. But I have visions of Christian McCaffrey breaking through and Jonathan Owens trying to make the tackle at 2 yards and him breaking that tackle, and I see a guy like Cole Bishop wanting to make that tackle. Jonathan Owens was more of a covered safety. Asking him to do things that he's not supposed to do or not very good at sometimes. I think Cole Bishop would be that kind of guy if you're expecting to play down the line of scrimmage, for sure. There's one other guy that I saw who I think is going to go super late, and that's Ryan Watts from Texas. He was at Ohio State.
Okay.
Transferred to Texas. He played corner in college, but they're projecting him at safety. He's 6'3", ran a 4.53. I mean, not super fast, but he has the ability to cover a ton of ground in the secondary. I guess it all comes back down to how do you see this person, whoever you're going to select that safety, fitting in with Xavier McKinney.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, Tim, you're kind of thinking of Xavier McKinney as kind of just roving the middle of the field type of guy, coming downhill at times.
Yeah, playing the post a lot, that deep post safety, and sideline to sideline, filling, for the runs, coming up on the outside screen, stuff like that. That's what I'm thinking they're going to use him as.
Yeah, and if that's what you're going to look at, I think Cole Bishop's a heck of a pick. If that's how you envision Xavier McKinney fitting in, for sure.
Well, and then another one, and this is one I'd actually like to watch more of, but not many people are talking about him, and it's kind of surprising to me based on his accolades. But Trey Taylor from Air Force, he's the Thorpe winner this season. Best DB in college football in 2023, and he's not in any of these conversations. So that's one that I would say keep an eye on, and the Packers did meet with him at the Shrine Bowl. 6 foot, 213, prototypical safety. Ed Reed's nephew. Yeah. So that's an interesting one.
Nice.
And just a little thing there, but seems like a high character guy. I mean, it's Air Force Academy. Not a lot of low character guys making it into there anyway. So, but yeah, just he he seems like an interesting pick that I don't know where he might go. That's one of those that when he goes like in the second or third round, people be going, wait, what? Who? It's like, yeah, he's a Thorpe winner, man. Like he was literally voted the best DB in college football last year. He might be drafted kind of high. So yeah, he's another one to keep an eye on that I think could be a good fit for the Packers. But yeah, all right. So Cole Bishop, I got outvoted here. I guess Cole Bishop ends up being the winner of this debate. I'm kind of excited though, and you know, Booge, you hit on it a little bit. Goot and them, they know what they're doing, man. It's like I don't care who you take where. I think you know what you're doing. I think you're right. So it's like, just take them. You know, you get a Carl Brooks in the 6th round last year. Like, holy crap, man. Take them. I don't care. I'm just along for the ride. Get my popcorn ready. But no. So what other interesting draft stuff is there to dive into from the DBs here? We've got a lot. This is a position where you know, the Packers are probably going to spend some capital, right? Whether cornerbacks and safeties.
They need to.
Booze, is there a corner that nobody's talking enough about?
I mean, it all depends on what route they take. I mean, you look at, you know, their draft picks. You know, they got their round 1 pick is late. You know, it seems like people are leaning towards picking offensive line in round 1,
which means it won't happen.
But Packers have a heck of a track record producing unbelievable linemen late in the draft.
Right.
You know, so, you know, I watched a little bit of film and I don't know if he'll be available this late, but if Nate Wiggins is available, if people pass on him because of the name recognition of the other guys, I think that would be an absolute mistake not to take him.
So you don't think he's undersized?
I don't. He is a press man corner. I mean, through and through. I mean, he's fast. He's in every single pass play I watched him. He's in phase every single time. His pass break, his like breaking on the ball, is second to none. I mean, I don't think I watched Kool-Aid. I watched, you know, Cooper. I don't think they're anywhere near where he is.
Really? Okay.
I have reservations because I was alive in 1999 when they took Antoine Edwards in the first round from Clemson. So I'm a little concerned about that. But I mean, that dude can play, man. He can play. And another guy I have on my list that I really liked was Kamari Ladouceur. Is it Ladouceur from Georgia?
Lassiter, yeah.
Yeah, Lassiter from Georgia. I mean, I think early on he might get in some trouble. His ball skills are not super refined. But once again, I mean, that guy was in phase every single clip that I saw, every single game that I watched. And the one thing that they described him as a dog. And he's just going to get in your face. And I think we're going to see a lot more press man than we have in the past. And
Good.
You know, it's great for us to call for that, but if we're going to call for it, then we got to have dudes that can press man. You know,
Yeah, right.
You know, last year we didn't have dudes that could do that. You know, across the board. So, you know, that would be, if he's available in, you know, round 2, I think that would be a heck of a pick for them. Those are 2 guys that kind of stuck out early on, at least. And I had Elijah Jones on my list just because of the Boston College connection. And the dude is, I mean, he's pretty good cover corner, and there's a familiarity there. And, you know, it might not be year 1, but, you know, I could see them putting a flyer on him late, you know, round 5, 6, 7, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's what makes this draft exciting. You know, is like I said before, sometimes day 3 seems boring, but man, there's some real players that will likely be available on day 3.
And the way they've been finding players on day 3, like, pay attention. I mean,
no kidding.
Brooks, Wicks last year, Carrington Valentine, Rasheed Walker going back, right? Yeah. Zach Tom was a 4th round guy, so yeah, they find them all the time.
Absolutely. So that very exciting, and you know, we're seeing a lot of stuff happening. One thing I wanted to bring up while we got Justin here is NIL, man. You know, so you're a high school football coach. We're seeing all sorts of changes, like you're saying. Saban dips out, talks about NIL being part of that. Are you noticing anything with your guys, or anything like from college coaches on how this stuff's changing the game?
Yeah, I guess, you know, it's hurting the smaller schools a lot more than the bigger schools. But even the bigger schools are dealing with you know, there's a couple of guys that are on my list where you look at, they're in an Ohio State jersey, and all of a sudden next year now they're in the Longhorn jersey.
Yeah.
They're in an FSU jersey, and now they're in a Louisville jersey. I think the NIL is its own beast, but I think the transfer portal itself is a huge unregulated transfer portal is a huge detriment to especially the smaller schools. You look at teams like you look at the West Coast, like Wyoming, Idaho, Colorado State. They get a good guy for a year or two, and all of a sudden, boom, he puts his film out there, transfers to transfer portal, and now he's playing in the Big Ten, or he's playing in the old Pac-12, whatever it might be.
Yep.
So I think a lot of the smaller schools are dealing with a lot of that trouble. And I think being a college coach is unbelievably hard. Like we talked about earlier, you have to recruit high school kids. You have to fly all over the country to recruit high school kids, but you also have to recruit your own kids every single year. And so, to me, seeing Nick Saban go retire, and it makes a little bit of sense to me, because that is not a job that I would most certainly. I don't know if I'd have the wherewithal to do that job year in and year out, because that's got to wear on you. Thinking who's leaving, who's staying. You look at Washington's team from last year.
Yeah.
I mean, how many other 24 starters did they lose to the draft or to the transfer portal? I think it was almost every single one of them.
A bunch, yeah. It might be all of them.
It's a brand new team.
It's a brand new team, and that guy from Arizona takes the job there. Great. What are you dealing with now? Who do you got? And then the guys from Arizona come with him. It's crazy to me.
It seems like it's having an effect on the draft, because guys are staying in college. Like Ohio State kept a bunch of guys that would have been high draft picks. I think there were only 60-some early entrants this year, where normally there's around 100. Mm-hmm. So whatever they're getting paid at some of these schools, I guess they're staying and figuring, I'll put more good tape out there and make some money in college before I go pro. It's crazy. Usually we see and I've seen some, people that know the draft experts saying it's not a deep draft. Like when you get into the third day, it's slim pickings. Like a lot of these guys in normal years would be free agents, not getting drafted. But this year, because so many people went back to school, they're going to end up being drafted 5th, 6th, 7th round guys.
I think that's probably like positional, right? Like I think that probably that's true for like a handful of positions. Like I don't even know. I don't want to like start throwing things out there and make myself sound like a jackwagon. But like when you look at receivers, it's super deep. But yeah, if you look at like tight ends, how deep is it? Few guys, that's about it. Even safeties and linebackers, not super deep.
Not at all.
Not a ton of guys.
No.
So I can see that from an overall perspective being a less deep draft in total. And really at the top, there's a hot debate around quarterbacks, and we have the luxury of not having to care about that at all. But and then you got like your Joe Alt, right? So he's kind of seems like a lock franchise kind of player. But just kind of a lack of star power, I feel like, at the pass rusher position. In some of these positions that you might normally have a little bit more going on. So I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. But we've learned some stuff from Goot in the past, right? Like with the Jordan Love situations. Like, well, if there's only one guy left on the board with a first-round grade, he'll make a move, right? So if we see him moving earlier, that's probably a good indication that, it's not deep and they got to go get the guys they want. They're loaded with draft picks to do that. I personally hope they don't come out with 11 new rookies. I don't think you've got 11 spots on this roster for rookies. Consolidate some of those picks, trade up, get more value. That's what I'd like to see personally. But yeah, so let's have some fun here, though. If they're, let's just talk draft crushes. Like if there's just one player you could take out of this draft class and plug them into the Packers, who do you think that would be, Tim?
Wow, that's good. You want realistic, or you want me to just say Marvin Harrison?
Let's have some fun. Yeah, let's
Marvin Harrison.
That's probably an obvious answer, I guess, with Marvin Harrison Jr.
That's a good one. One of the top corners or one of the top offensive tackles.
Yeah.
So I like to, if we're talking tackles, I think one that's somewhat realistic is, I'm going to kill his last name, but Fatanwu from Washington.
Yeah.
And maybe they view him as a guard because he is a little shorter, but other than his height, he's a tackle. And I think that's one of the, things that we can talk about as we get closer to the draft. There's a lot of these guys that are going to go in the first round on the offensive line. Some teams are going to view them as tackles. Some are going to view them as guards. How do the Packers view them? And if they're viewing them as interior line guys, then they're probably not taking an interior offensive lineman in the first round because they haven't done it since Aaron Taylor.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of nice tackles. We've talked about Quinyon Mitchell, the corner from Toledo. I really like him. And
yes,
that would fill a big hole, I think, opposite Jair. So yeah, I guess give me a tackle, give me a corner. Mitchell would probably be my corner. Just because I think it's a cool story because he's from Toledo and he's had to, work his way up and go to the Senior Bowl and go to the Combine and really keep proving himself. And he's continually done that.
He's a beast, man.
Yeah. And he's got an attitude. He plays with a little swagger, which would be cool because I think at times they need that. They need that fire.
Yeah.
And give me an offensive lineman who, they've had a lot of success drafting pass protectors, which is great. We've had franchise quarterbacks protect the passer, but I think they need somebody with a little attitude that can kick some ass and move some people in the run game too. Athletic ability is great on the offensive line, but at some point, get in there and just hammer some dudes.
Hell yeah, man. Now, Graham Barton is the darling of Packers Twitter right now, which is again like the death sentence. Like we won't get him because of that. Him and Cooper DeJean. It's like, all right, not happening.
Where do you think he plays? Is he a center, guard, tackle?
I think it's kind of similar to the answer that Justin gave about running backs and about Brillan Allen. It's like it depends on the fit. Like where are you going to go, and what do they value? I think that's probably really true for most of the running back class, but probably a lot of the offensive line class. Like there's a lot of guys that could be a guard, could be a tackle. There's a few guys that have those center snaps so they can, shift in there if they need to. The one thing we don't know is how do they feel about, the starting center now. Why am I blanking?
Josh Myers.
Yeah, Myers. Is he one of those guys that they like him more than most of the fans like him? And they're going to hold on to him. I guess they've got to make a contract decision soon on him. If he's not, then I could see them going after somebody. It's not a deep class for that interior line, but it is strong at the top. So, it's kind of like if you need a tight end, you better go get Brock Bowers. Do you have to go get the kid from Oregon to get a good center? I think that's an indictment on Myers if you're going that far. But if Barton falls to you with that second round pick, that might be one you have to take because then you have flexibility to say, well, he's going to be a guard or a center. I don't know. We'll just plug him in and see what he does in camp. But I don't know, Budak. What do you think, man? This is a fun topic around the O-line. You're an offensive guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would think Grant Barton would be I think he'd be a great fit. I really do. He's pretty versatile. I think he could play center or guard, wherever they need him. He's a safe pick, and their track record with offensive linemen is second to none. I mean,
good.
If he's available in round 2 at 41, I think you'd be crazy not to take him. I don't think he will be.
That would be a perfect spot to get him there.
My dream scenario would be, I said, take Nate Wiggins in the round 1 and take Grant Barton with the 41st. They got that. That would be, in my opinion, a slam dunk. But
yeah,
it might not be out of the realm of them to take him with that 25th pick. It really might not be. Because we're not at the tackle position, there's guys available, but that interior O-line is tough, especially if Myers is going. I mean, the Packers don't typically sign guys a ton on their second and third contract. They let them go, and I think Grant Barton would be a really good fit for him. That would be a slam dunk at 41 for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. No,
what about you, Miles? Who your guys?
Who's my guy that I'm plugging in? It's going to sound weird.
You're going to say receivers, aren't you?
You say Caleb Williams.
Oh, my God. I'm not trying to get the show burned down here. No, I'm gonna. This is probably surprising. I'm gonna say Malik Neighbors. And this is more of a fantasy pick, obviously. That they're not gonna be close enough to pick him, but he looks like Jamar Chase to me. And if you could plug in Jamar Chase to this Packers offense, oh my God, give me that, please. Can I have it? I want that. Dude's a beast. I would love to see that. If we're talking more realistic situations, I'm probably looking at the DB side of the ball and going with Quinyon Mitchell. That guy, he looks like a slam dunk for corner, just for all the way around. Athletically, from an attitude perspective, he's checked all the boxes leading up to the draft as far as like having a good Senior Bowl, having a good combine. You haven't heard a word about his character, which means he's probably a pretty upstanding dude. So yeah, I think he'd be an awesome one to plug in there. I don't think they're going to have a chance to get him. I got to believe he goes top 10, maybe top 15. But yeah, that would be my one. And then my other one that is more realistic, that's just a lot of fun. And this is one that I don't know. I've argued this a few times. But Tavondre, what's his name? The kid from Texas.
Oh, the big defensive tackle.
Yeah, Tavondre Sweat.
Yeah.
Yes, give me that dude. Give me that 6'4", 260-pound mountain in the middle of that defensive line next to Kenny Clark. Give me that guy. And I don't care where.
We put him on fourth round, whatever. They put him at fullback on the goal line too.
Yes, we need that BJ Raji energy, man. That's what I want that back. Give me that back. We lost BJ Raji too soon. Hopefully he's out there somewhere, rocking the G. But yes, Tavondre Sweat, I think, would be a fun one to plug into the defense. And he looks like an excellent prospect. He's just big, man. So a lot of people question his durability. He's played a lot of snaps in college. In 21, he played 300-plus snaps, 22, 400-plus, almost 523. He played 500-plus snaps. Like, he's played a lot of snaps, and so from what I can tell, he doesn't have an injury history. I haven't, gone and creeped on the guy that much, but you haven't heard anything about it. So I'm really interested to see where a guy like that goes. That's one that, the mock drafters think he's going to the third or fourth round, and I just don't think he's making it that far. For a guy that big, he can move, and he's another one. Great Senior Bowl performance. He'd be a lot of fun. I think he'd be a lot of fun to plug into this Packers defense. But we'll see. Well, that's why we're getting close. It's fun to have these conversations. Speculate a little bit, talk about fit, some of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we just got to strap in and see what happens. So we'll do that. We only got a few weeks left. 3 podcasts left, I think, before the draft. Is that right, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we're getting close. So it's going to be here before we know it. But yeah, so, until then, we'll break into, let's see, we still haven't done a QB debate. Maybe we need to do a QB debate just for fun.
We'll talk about how the Bears are going to screw up Caleb Williams.
Yeah, maybe we'll just dedicate a whole episode to what are the Bears going to do? That could be a pretty fun conversation. But yeah, so we got a few episodes left here before the draft. We do probably need to talk a little bit about tight ends. Should we talk about the tight end position next week? We didn't really mention them at all this week. We could do that, and then we're going to try to squeeze in a mock draft. Like, go ahead and do the thing. I haven't done a single mock draft yet. I don't know. There's just no use to me in hitting the simulation machine. It's not like there's NFL GMs putting information in there that's going to help us out. We're just all drafting against each other, I guess. So we'll do one of those, and then, we'll go through and do like a full draft kind of review to see, what prospects are out there, go kind of back through the list. It's been a while since we talked about offensive line before the combine, so that's been a while. We've got to get back and probably touch on those a little bit, and maybe spend a little bit more time on small school guys. Shout out to all the Division II and Division III guys There's usually a few each year that make an impact, so we want to see if we can shine a light there. Budak, thank you for joining us, man. This was a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on, giving us a little insight into Brillan Allen. Having seen his career and his upbringing, man, like watching a high school kid squat was a 600-700 pounds had to just be ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys. It was a good time for sure.
Yeah. No, man, you'll have to jump back on with us again whenever, man. Always good to have you, and just as a friend, good to see you, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and thanks to everybody who's listening. Shout out to all of you guys. Jump in the comments. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you think. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're morons. I don't know. You guys got to let us know, though, or we'll never know. But thanks for hanging out with us this week on the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, or X, Facebook, Instagram, all the socials. Please subscribe to the Packers Talk YouTube channel. And we will see y'all next week, Packers fans. Go, Pack, go.